This is the third time this week that the Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to take a case on an emergency basis. And in the last 2 months, there have been 6 times that they've asked the Supreme Court to take the case on an emergency basis. The Supreme Court hasn't taken any of those cases yet. So the question is whether they'll take, of all the cases that have come before them, this one actually seems like there is an emergency involved. The other ones, I don't want to pay probationary employees. I want to put them on administrative leave. I don't want to pay teacher grants. Those don't seem as much. And the birthright citizenship, which has been, a foundational principle in our country, they don't seem as much an emergency. This one does, and how they will rule is, I don't know, because, if I had to look at the way that law is, it seems like he is not in the right place with that law. Every other time that law was invoked, 3 other times, it was during wartime. And he's saying that the Venezuelans are like, they're invading us, and they have to have a connection to the government. And according to some, I think they were asking Ratcliffe about this. According to some of the FBI or national security information, they don't list this gang as being under the control of the Venezuelan government. So,
So, June, of course, in the government, we have real checks and balances here. Can you just put this a bit in context for people? How much autonomy does President Trump really have in terms of this deportation conversation, and where does the Supreme Court come into play here?
So President Trump is taking in a lot of these executive actions. He is testing the limits of his executive authority. He's really going beyond the limits in a lot of these cases. For example, using the Enemy Alien Act. So the next thing that happens when a president exercises authority that seems to be beyond his control is there are lawsuits, and then the courts decide. And at the top of the courts is the Supreme Court. So if he has gone beyond his authority, then I'll go before the Supreme Court, and they'll make a decision, and that's the final word on it. And then you have to hope that the president will obey the Supreme Court. Every president in history has, but this is different.
Do we know who these Venezuelan people are? Have they been identified? Do we know, are they in fact gang members? Are they mothers and daughters and
Well,
fathers?
they're no women, because they sent 3 women down, and this El Salvadoran prison will not take women. So they sent them actually back on the plane. But there are a lot of people here, relatives, who are saying that they're not gang members. They're not gang members. They have tattoos that may resemble a gang. One tattoo they showed was actually, they claim, a tattoo for a soccer team and not a tattoo for a gang. The gang is very dangerous. The gang is everything they, say about it as far as danger. But it doesn't seem like, the Trump administration and these deportations, they're moving so fast. They have made mistakes before in the deportation. So, it seems like it's pretty likely that of the hundreds of Venezuelans they sent down there, that some of them don't belong there. And then there's the question of, sending immigrants to a prison in El Salvador. Venezuela doesn't like that.
Right. Are there other countries at play here, or is Venezuela the main target right now when it comes to deportations legally?
Is Venezuela? You mean Venezuelans in this country? Or
Exactly.
No, they're trying to deport scores of other people, but the Venezuelans, they're the only group that they've done under this Alien Enemies Act. That's why it's drawn so much attention. But they're trying to deport, and they're taking away, Joe Biden had given some groups of immigrants temporary status, and they're taking away the temporary status. So it's not just the Venezuelans, it's that the Venezuelans, it's being done under this law, which is, as I said, the use of it here is very tenuous, and every judge who's looked at it, or at least, Judge Boasberg, who, by the way, is a very, very good judge, despite the fact that he's been put in the spotlight with this. So,
is there a scenario where the Supreme Court just says, "Hey, man, stop bothering us with all this emergency stuff.
We've got a full plate." Every day I ask.
Is there a maximum?
Well, it seems like
that's why we have the district court or whatever.
I know.
It is.
And also the Supreme Court likes things to percolate, as they say, so that they can get other, see if there's a split in the circuits. But these are getting, 3 times in 1 week. Can you believe that there are 3 emergencies in 1 week? You have to look at the court
Yep.
and see when the court will say, okay, enough is enough.